I just listened to all 3 albums by Granicus, and here are my thoughts. So Granicus is a hard rock band that originated in the early 70s and released their main album, their debut album, in 1973. I had not heard of Granicus until I think 2 weeks ago. There's an Instagram account that I follow. The handle is James B. Jones 87. And it's a man named James who is one of the stars of a Netflix show called Love on the Spectrum. It's one of my favorite shows. James was on it, and I followed his Instagram account, and I love his account. He talks a lot about music. He talks a lot about social stuff that I always find engaging. And the moment that he mentioned a classic rock band that I'd never heard of, I knew that I just had to start going through it. So Granicus only has 3 albums, and only one of those albums was released in their prime, and that is their self-titled debut from 1973. This album, though, is a hidden gem. It is a hidden masterpiece. I think more people should know about this. And it was released in 73, and they broke up specifically because they were unsupported by their label, unsupported by their manager. They felt like no one had really taken notice of them. But they ended up somewhat reforming many years later, releasing another album in 2010, specifically because they had noticed that this 73 debut album was getting a little bit of a cult following. I didn't really know what to expect, so I start putting the first album on, and the first song, You're in America, starts out very, very 70s hard rock, and pretty much right out the gate, the vocalist, a guy named Woody Leffel, his voice just keeps going up and up and up and up to the point that I'm just amazed at how much range and power this man has. I saw in some forums that he is often likened to Geddy Lee or Robert Plant. There were many times that I heard Geddy Lee in this man's voice. Also, though, his voice often reminded me of the second singer from Iron Butterfly. So whoever the man was that sang in Scorching Beauty and Sun and Steel, that was a man named Eric Brann. I just looked it up. I always like to make sure artists are called out by name for being given their proper credit. But this album here isn't only straightforward 70s hard rock. There is sprinklings of heavy metal in here where the vocalist Woody Leffel, his voice goes into some just crazy powerful screams. There's a lot of influence of progressive rock here in this album. Some psychedelic rock, there's some heavy blues rock, and yet not a single time on this album did they sound like Copycat. The guitarist, a guy named Wayne Anderson, really shines on the second song, Bad Talk. His guitar playing was so smooth, it was so you get the sense that the solos just sound perfect. They sound exactly the way that they're supposed to sound. Track 4, Prayer, is the album's masterpiece. It starts off pretty slow and then builds up in terms of power and epicness. Really what I felt like is if you had listened to Child in Time by Deep Purple, and when you were done with it, you thought, man, I really wish there were more songs that sounded just like this. This is the next song you should listen to. And then Cleveland, Ohio was a very catchy song. A lot of artists in their first album have this song that's something like, oh, I'm getting out of where I grew up and I'm going on to Hollywood or going on to LA, and this is their version of that. Nightmare was another highlight for me, kind of going along the lines of more of an existential sounding ballad, which I feel like those always stand out to me. I love existential sounding ballads. And then the last 2 tracks, When You're Moving in Paradise, really just keep up the energy of the whole album. These are absolutely worthy closers. Really, really enjoyed Paradise. As I said, they break up after this album and go about their lives, and then in the 2000s they noticed that their debut album got some sort of cult following, so they released their second album in 2010, which is not new material. This album is compiled of demos that were never released. So this album is called Thieves, Liars, and Traitors, and the main thing holding this album back is that the quality of the album is demo quality. So the sound of the drums, the sound of the guitars is just not very refined. The songs themselves, though, were really good. Space and Time was a great song, kind of a space psychedelic. blues rock. Equator, Wizard of Woz, and Slings and Arrows all stood out to me as being, these are really good songs, these are really catchy songs. Would have loved to have heard new recordings of them, new professional studio recordings of them. The final song on this album is a live recording. It starts out being When You're Moving from their first album, but it turns into this 30-minute blues rock jam. And for it being 30 minutes long and it just being kind of a recording of a live jam session, it kept my attention the whole way through. These guys clearly had a lot of spontaneous creativity. Now, they do release one more album in 2016. It's called Better Days. It's an album of new recording. It does not have Woody Leffel on vocals. They got someone new in. So this new guy, his name is Gary Schultz. He was fine, much like the album itself was fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. But it wasn't just oozing with the personality and energy of their previous work. So really, I felt like this was an album of kind of like very good filler tracks, I guess. The heavy metal influence is gone. The prog influence is gone, and this is going much more towards just standard 70s heavy blues rock sound. So yeah, I liked these songs well enough. I think I liked Southbound, Walk Free, and On the Road the most. The title track was also pretty good. Give and Take starts off with some pretty infectious energy, so gotta hand it to it for that. But yeah, only check out this album if you love Granicus, or you just love finding music that you're unfamiliar with, that you've never heard before. Otherwise, I really would just steer you towards their first self-titled album. Every classic rock fan should hear this. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Granicus. I do have time, so I'll include some excerpts of some of my favorite songs at the end of the video. While I have you though, I'll just share, in my Beckett video, I had wondered if I should start doing heavy metal, classic heavy metal on this channel, and I got a couple comments on that, so I decided I am going to start doing some classic heavy metal videos. So this is going to be ranging from Black Sabbath up to, I think, Slayer. Slayer is, I think, the heaviest band that you can get to that is still known by fans of classic rock and classic metal. So yeah, classic metal, new wave of British heavy metal, and then centering around the first part of the thrash metal movement. I might later on down the line set up a different channel where I go through more extreme genres of heavy metal, so going through more doom metal and death metal and black metal, maybe some folk metal and power metal in there. But for now, just very focused on this, and you'll start seeing 70s and 80s classic metal videos come through more often. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and here are some of my favorite Granicus songs.